The New Jersey Devils. This team was incredibly disappointing last year. 7th in the Metro after a huge year the year before. But they were under the hood. They were pretty decent in terms of offense. 7th in Corsi for percentage, 20th in expected goals for percentage according to Natural Stat Trick, but then 11th in scoring chances for percentage. That is a little bit confusing to me. But just the expected goals metrics are a little different on Natural Stat Trick than some other spots, but scoring chances, it sounded like they were actually producing pretty well. Their 5v5 shooting percentage, 30th in the league, or sorry, save percentage, 30th in the league, 891. They did not have goaltending. That was the biggest issue. Their goalies could not stop a beach ball. They have addressed that. Their shooting percentage at 5v5 was 10th in the league at 9.88. And then their power play percentage was 13th at 22.4% conversion. This is a team that I do expect to bounce back. Key departures: Capo Kakinen, Kevin Ball, Alexander Holtz, Akira Schmid. No one really of consequence there.
No.
Their key additions, these are key. Jacob Markstrom, that's the biggest one. Like that's massive.
That's huge.
A guy that can make a save. That's a massive addition. Paul Cotter, he's gonna get you some bangs. Thomas Tatar, some depth scoring. Brett Pesce, that's shores up the defense as well. And then Brendan Dillon, another banger. He's a huge bangers catch streamer. He's a target of mine a lot.
I love Brendan Dillon. Addition. Yeah, he went to high school across the street from me, Surrey boy. So I'm a draft him for that.
Oh, nice. Oh, very cool. That's awesome. I didn't know that. That's great. He's I like him a lot in bangers cats leagues. And he'll shore up the defense as well. So they've got a nice kind of middle pair in Brendan Dillon and Brett Pesce. Not sure if they will play together, but it definitely shores up their defense a little bit. So I like the outlook of this team. I think regardless, they would be bouncing back even just with the addition of Markstrom. But yeah, Markstrom had 48 starts last year. He had a 915 even strength save percentage. Pretty solid year in Calgary even though the sky was kind of falling there. And Jake Allen, they also brought in at the trade deadline last year. He had 33 starts last year with a 911 even strength save percentage. So still a guy that has juice in the tank, I think. And honestly, like when people have been talking about Jacob Markstrom in these previews, they're talking about him being like a top 5 goalie in the league this year just because he's playing on the Devils. And I just don't know that that's the case. Because Jake Allen's in the fold.
Exactly.
I do think they'll probably share the starts a little bit more. I do think Markstrom is the starter. Like, it's not going to be a tandem situation, but I do think Allen is probably going to play more games than people think. You agree with that, Gugs?
Again, Markstrom was he was a Canuck and he's a solid goaltender, but you really got to manage his workload. I feel, especially I think it was a couple of knee injuries he's had in his career. So, and Jake Allen, he's a solid goaltender, so you shouldn't be too worried about giving Jake Allen a start here or there. Do you think it's more of a 1A for Markstrom and a 1B for Allen, or?
I still do think he's probably going to be a volume starter, just not as much volume as like a Demko or people like that, like a Vasilevsky. They have a relatively quality backup. So I do think I think it's probably like a 60-40 or a 65-35 that type of situation. But yeah, I don't think that. I mean, obviously, I think Markstrom is going to be a really solid goaltender, but I think that he's probably going to be overdrafted this year. So he's not a guy that I'm going to end up having on my team.
Do you know his ADP? I didn't check his ADP.
I didn't check his ADP. I didn't check goalie ADPs just because.
Me either.
I'm probably pushing them all to the bottom, but
same.
Anyways, we'll look that up at some point. Let's go to schedule quirks. So they've got 12 back-to-backs. They're tied for 16th. And then they have 31 off nights. That's tied for 11th. their 20 weeks 22 to 24 playoff schedule, 9 games with 5 off nights, so not a fantastic playoff schedule in those weeks. But if your league goes to the bitter end in weeks 23 to 25, they have 11 games and 6 off nights, which is a decent playoff schedule there. Middle of the pack, but 6 off nights is pretty nice. All right, let's go to the power play projection. Sheldon Keefe coming into the fold.
Yeah, boy, that's your guy right there.
My boy, yeah. I mean, yeah. I suppose he's my guy. Like, I do like Sheldon Keefe. I like Sheldon Keefe. I don't know that he really made enough adjustments in the playoffs to have success, and that's really the reason that he got canned. But I think the one thing that you can't expect from Sheldon Keefe is he's going to play his guys, and that's what we love in fantasy hockey. So I expect them to load up a top power play, and I expect that to be Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier. I don't really think there's anyone else that could challenge for a spot at forward on this team. And then on the back end, the question is it Dougie Hamilton? Is it Luke Hughes? I think the answer, I think it should be Dougie Hamilton. I think
it should be
a ton more than Hughes. I don't think Hughes. I think Hughes is kind of an overrated player at this point. Obviously, a really good prospect, but at this point in his career, I do think that there's a lot of name brand that's been thrown around just because he's a Hughes brother. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Dougie Hamilton is going to be the guy on the top power play. So,
Dougie's ADP is even if he doesn't get that top power play, like I think what he had, like he played 20 games last year, still got like 16 points, 5 goals, 11 assists, not getting top power play deployment. He's at his ADP, that's not bad. And then you got the upside of him actually getting power play 1, and then you're just laughing, you know.
Yeah, of course. And I factored a power play share into my projections. So I mean, we'll talk about that when we get into my projections here. But let's talk about the forwards here. Yeah. So we've got to kick it off with Jack Hughes.
Oh yeah.
I've got him projected for 49 goals, 58 assists, 107 points, 369 shots. That is elite, and 38 power play points. These would all be career highs for Jack Hughes. Very bullish on this guy. I think he's a guy that you could add value, even though his ADP in Yahoo is 12 and his Apples and Geno's ADP is 11.8. Like, that's a guy that I think could even outperform that ADP, especially in points leagues. Like, obviously the peripheral value isn't necessarily there, doesn't really hit or block, but he shoots, man. He scores goals. Power play points are going to be there, and those are extremely valuable in Bangers Cats leagues, and I think are actually undervalued because power play points are really hard to get. There's very few players that get elite power play points. So
I'm totally like, you know, in those early rounds, even though I'm like a slut for bangers categories players, like this guy gives you so many power play points. He's an elite point producer, an elite shot producer. I don't give a shit if he has 3 hits at the end of the year, because like it's so much harder to, I think Nate said it himself, it's so much harder to find an elite point producer on the power play. And you can get a Jeremy Lauzon and a Gudas in your double digit rounds later to make up for Jack Hughes' lack of banger cats.
100%. But in terms of someone that can cover the categories, we've got Timo Meier here. I have him for a pretty bullish projection. 36 goals, 42 assists, 78 points. Those would be career highs. Yeah. Also 291 shots, 140 hits. Right now, his Apples and Geno's ADP is 38.3. I think that's pretty reasonable. Yahoo ADP is 81.5. Now,
Love it.
he did have a down year last year. It seemed like he had an injury, but at the
Yeah.
end of the season, he really started popping when he got
Yeah.
some nice deployment. And I could see him getting a lot of ice time just because of the way that Sheldon Keefe deploys his guys.
Yeah.
So Timo Meier, I think, is a guy that you should be jumping on, especially
Yeah.
if he falls like that.
Definitely.
Yeah. That's your feeling on Meier as well?
Yeah, I think it was what was it? His last season or second last season with the Sharks. This guy was pretty much not being drafted. Nobody liked the Sharks. And he had like a career year. And at the value he went for he was like a second round player. And I kind of see that there's a potential for him to have that similar value to that, because like people are sleeping on him. He made a lot of people really pissed off. I held on to the guy for literally most of the year and unfortunately dropped him in multiple leagues right before he went on that hot streak. So
Yeah.
I see the potential there. He shoots a ton, he throws the body a ton, he scores you some goals. Yeah, Sheldon Keefe. I don't think Sheldon Keefe's going to play games. I think he's going to stay on that power play.
Yeah. Jesper Bratt. This is a guy that Nate and Blake are huge.
Oh yeah, they got me hyped on him. Yeah,
I have a relatively conservative projection, but I do see the upside here for Jesper Bratt. 31 goals, 50 assists, 81 points. That's what I have him for. They both have him for more than that. And I mean, I definitely can hear the argument for that. Apples and Geno's ADP 29.8. I think that's probably because Nate has been so outspoken about his love for Jesper Bratt. In Yahoo, it's 46.5. I do think that there is you could probably that could be value at 46.5 for Jesper Bratt, especially if Jack Hughes stays healthy for the whole season and they play together. Yeah, I mean, again, Sheldon Keefe's going to play his boys, so
yeah.
I'm pretty excited for Bratt as well. Nico Hischier, I've got him for a relatively conservative projection too. 28 goals, 44 assists, 72 points. I could see him busting through that. The reason I've kind of dialed it back is just because there's not a ton of offensive depth on this team. So I don't know what his 5v5 situation is going to be, whether they split Meier and Bratt up and put one of them with Hischier and one of them with Hughes. I mean, then I could see his point ceiling kind of increasing. But he's being faded like crazy.
Yeah.
And
I love that.
I think you could get massive value for Nico Hischier. His Apples and Geno's ADP is 95.3, and in Yahoo it's 113.6.
Yeah.
This is a guy that was like drafted in the 5th round last year. And he's being pushed way down. Like if you're fading centers, this is a guy that you could grab and be so stoked about.
Oh yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Fade centers in the early rounds, get your elite point producing wingers, get yourself a Nico Hischier in maybe even the double digit rounds if you're lucky.
Yeah, 100%. And then I projected Andre Palat and Dawson Mercer. Neither of them I think are going to be super fantasy relevant. I mean, they're definitely streamers. Palat, I think, has seen probably his best days of his career. I think he's on the back half. I've got him for 44 points. Dawson Mercer, 21 goals, 26 assists, 46 points. His Yahoo ADP is 176, which is, I mean, I'm surprised he's being drafted in Yahoo leagues, just because there's not a ton of peripheral value there. But I mean, he's a guy that he does have a bit of upside and will play minutes. But I'm not expecting him to be like a full-time roster player in fantasy. And then in terms of defensemen, we got Dougie Hamilton, we got Luke Hughes. I've factored in the fact that they're probably going to share power play time, as I mentioned. But I still have Dougie Hamilton at 17 goals, 49 assists, 66 points, 258 shots. And he's getting drafted at 51 in Apples and Geno's leagues and 65 in Yahoo leagues. So there could potentially be some value there for Dougie Hamilton, but there is certainly risk. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like if he plays power play 2 the entire year, he's probably not hitting those numbers, but he does bring enough at 5v5 that he is going to produce, and be really solid on your fantasy team. Just might not live up to those ADPs if he doesn't get power play one time.
I think he pissed off a lot of fantasy owners because they spent such a high draft capital on him
Yeah.
last year. But at where he's going now, I'm willing to take that risk.
Yeah. Luke Hughes, I've got him for 7 goals, 34 assists, 41 points. He's going at 147.7 in Apples and Chinos leagues, 109.8 in Yahoo leagues. This is a guy you definitely. I mean, this is my punt.
Yeah.
I'm going to talk about it here. He doesn't do anything peripherally, doesn't generate a ton under the hood. Obviously, there is space for him to take another step. He was a rookie last year. He's super young. So I mean, I'm definitely open to him taking another step, but there's nothing that I've seen that makes me incredibly excited about Luke Hughes as a fantasy asset this year, especially with Dougie Hamilton there competing for power play time. So even with power play time, I don't see his ceiling increasing that much over
Yeah.
that 41 points. Like I do think the 47 points last year was probably around the max that I see him achieving this season. So
I see that.
yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on Luke Hughes?
So last year, one of my main competitors in my home league, he had Luke Hughes for longer than he should have, in my opinion. And I was just telling the boys, like, let's really pump Luke Hughes' tires. So we all sent him like trade requests for Luke Hughes, like really bad trade requests, and we just really our strategy was to make him hold on to this guy as long as possible in a Bangers Cats league. Unfortunately, at the end of the year, the dude like kind of went off, so it kind of backfired. But anyways, what I'm trying to say is I don't want him. I kind of feel like he's a bit of a trap. And I'm more than happy to let my opponents take this guy.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. Totally. All right. Top 3 targets. I talked about, oh yeah, I didn't mention a sleeper, but this is I mean, these are that's kind of what this section is for. Not really a sleeper, but I think Nico Hischier, as we mentioned, could be a major ADP value. And then, like I said, Jack Hughes, it could be a value even getting him in the first round. And then
That's crazy.
Timo Meier's ADP is way too low in Yahoo right now, so that's a guy that I think could bring some huge value. And then, yeah, like I mentioned, Nico Hischier.